I'm a Gold Star widow. My husband was with the 173rd Airborne. We met in high school, and it was an alternative school in Nebraska. When he graduated high school, he was 19. We got married. He joined the military. He went off to basic training for 6 months due to infantry and airborne training.
And he did both those at Fort Benning?
Yes, he went to Fort Benning, Georgia for those. The unit was supposed to be deploying or going to Vicenza, Italy, but we were actually ended up being attached to the 191 Cav in Schweinfurt, Germany. So he went over there. We went over there in August of 2006. Chris and I both grew up looking for a sense of family deeper than what we had. And so when we went to Germany and we became a family with the military guys, doing barbecues, going out, drinking, having fun, doing birthday parties together. And the guys ended up deploying the day before Mother's Day. I was pregnant at the time, about 4 or 5 months pregnant when they deployed. The guys were deployed for about 3 months until when they come under fire. At that point, we lost some of our guys, and some of our guys were injured as well. Chris was there, and he helped get some of the soldiers that were injured to safety that day. During that blackout period, when you can't speak to your loved ones when something happens overseas, and being pregnant at that time, that was very difficult for me, not being able to know what was going on. Even though he was in Afghanistan, Chris and I talked almost every day, actually. He was able to somehow or another get a phone and call me and check on me, which was apparently unheard of. So when he was able to call me after that blackout period, he told me, well, you have to talk strategically because the phones will cut off on you if you say anything too informational. So I just asked him, I'm like, hey, I heard you were in a fight. How'd that go? Like, what do you think? And he's, well, we can't talk about that. And it's like, well, that's why I said fight, it's not specific there. And, he was trying to explain it. I guess I don't know the words to explain it, but, your adrenaline is rushing. You just kind of go and do what you got to do. And with the soldiers that were injured that day, you could hear it in his voice of how proud he was and how happy that he was there to be able to help those guys get to safety or to the medevac plane or those areas of whatnot. About a month later, on August 17th, 2007, the base come under fire. The base was like a fishbowl. They tried to take it over before our guys got deployed there, and they couldn't, but they decided to send them there again. There was one road in and one road out, and on the other side of that was a ravine of water. So our guys had mountains surrounding them. There's no good vantage point, maybe if that's the right word, but when they come under fire, the guys got in their positions and whatnot, but you got fire coming at you from mountains coming down on you. Chris, my late husband, got in the prone position and to take, return fire. And he ended up getting struck right above his nipple, and the bullet traveled down and it hit his kidney, liver, lung, and his spinal cord. When I got that information, I had just left base. I was going to the mail room to deliver him a big, huge box of all kinds of whatnots. And I was filling out the paperwork. A soldier walked in with his beret on. And me being me, gave him a little grief about it. Like, hey, you're going to get in trouble. You're not supposed to have that on indoors. His statement to me was, I was looking for somebody, but they're not in here. Okay. Went back to doing what I was doing. Mind you, I was 4-5 months pregnant. Looked like I was about to pop any day already. As I walked out of the mailroom, I was asked my name and who I was. And obviously, I was like, yeah, I'm Pfeiffer's wife. I was told that he was injured and that I needed to go over to headquarters. So I literally got in my car and I drove a couple blocks to headquarters. Leaving base before that, I saw my German doctor outside a post. You have to have certain permission to be able to go on post over in Germany. I thought it was kind of interesting that my doctor was outside of base. Kind of blew it off, continued to the mailroom. When I got to headquarters after them telling me about him getting injured, they really didn't want to tell me a whole bunch because they were actually waiting for my doctor to show up. One of my really good friends was pregnant at the same time, and her husband was a part of Chris's unit, but was back on Rear D doing military stuff in the office because he actually had broken his ankle during a situation. So they knew what was going on. And with that, they got my doctor because they thought I would go into labor. So they didn't want to tell me anything until my doctor got there. When they did tell me, they didn't have all the information yet. They had no idea exactly the extent of his wounds. But at that point, I had to call his family. Mind you, it's morning time for us. Stateside, it's middle of the night. And I had to call my mother-in-law and father-in-law and tell them that he had been injured, but that he was still alive at least. Because at that point, that's all we knew. He lost more blood than a human body holds multiple times over. They were pumping him full of blood so much that he didn't even type his own blood type until almost the very end. The doctors had never heard of such a thing at that time. So it took them 3 days to get him stable enough to even fly him out of Afghanistan. Once they were able to get him stable, I'm getting phone calls from Afghanistan, from the soldiers actually there that he served with, calling and letting me know what was going on. Because this is 2007. A lot of this stuff was, I don't know, not necessarily not second thought of, but, just trying to communicate in the mountains of Afghanistan back to, the States and whatnot. So Rear D, which is the ones that are supposed to be giving you the information, didn't have a whole lot of information themselves. I was getting it direct. Mind you, I'm 5 months pregnant and hormonal, not being able to sleep much. Once they were able to get him stable enough to fly him, they flew him into Germany, which I was at the hospital waiting for him before they even got him situated at the hospital. I almost punched a priest out. Thankfully, my friend, which her husband, once again, that was there, they showed up at the hospital with me. The priest and his, obviously he's trying to be consoling and this and that, but when you're distraught, you don't want somebody patting you on the back like a dog. And that's how I felt at the time. I'm like, just don't touch me. So she got in between me and him at one point, just in case, because I just didn't want to be touched no more. Once they got him stable enough and I was able to go into the room, I had another military widow or wife at the time there with me as well. Seeing him hooked up to the monitors and the machines, I had to hold it together myself. I couldn't lose it. I had to be strong for him. And, the doctors, he was able to be somewhat coherent. There's a certain chest rub that you can do on the chest, and they were able to do that, and you could tell he could hear that I was there and sense that in a way. Because they did not have a medevac plane out to Walter Reed, they ended up sending us to San Antonio. To Reed, the flight would have been 2 days that we would have had to wait. To the extent of his wounds, Germany did not have the extent to be able to take care of him. So the next flight out would have been in San Antonio. At this point, I was 34 weeks pregnant, 33 weeks pregnant, something like that. The Air Force cutoff time frame is 32 weeks for flying. I don't know if that's commercial or airline or military in general or whatnot, but it was 34 weeks or 32 weeks cutoff period at that time. So they didn't want to let me on the medevac plane, in all honesty. But they ended up apparently getting special clearance. I'm on a military medevac plane that has tons of doctors on it, burn unit individuals and stuff like that. I'm if the baby's coming, I think I'm okay. We'll be good. But they ended up coming to find out they had clearance for emergency landings in different areas, is what I was told by a medevac doctor, that if I had went into labor that they were going to land that medevac plane for me to have the baby, which made no sense to me, honestly. On the medevac plane, Chris's vitals kept going haywire due to potential altitude, shakiness, all kinds of different potential things. But his medevac team would let me go up there and stand and be next to him and talk to him and hold his hand during that flight. And his vitals would calm down. He would relax. Once we got to San Antonio, he was in the ICU. His family came. His brother was there. I had support from them. My brother's a Marine veteran. He had clearance to come if he needed to be able to be there. Me being stubborn, I was like, nah, I got this. The time that Chris was in the hospital, we had good times. We were able to joke. We were able to goof off. He flipped me off a couple times because I was drinking a Coca-Cola and he couldn't have one. But the bullet had paralyzed him. He was going to be paralyzed from roughly the mid-chest, belly button, rough down. At that point in time, mind you, 18 years ago, science wasn't what it is today. I think he would have been miserable at that time, trying to deal with all of that kind of context with being an outdoorsman and whatnot. He wouldn't always remember, obviously, due to the trauma, where he was and what was going on. But we had a nurse come in there with a Doppler radar to check his pulse and his feet. And she made a comment out loud. I don't hear a heartbeat. I'm like, are you serious, woman? And Chris had made a comment at that point, like, it's okay. I know I can't feel it anyways. So there was some type of process in his mind that he knew that. He tried pulling out his cords and stuff like that at different points, not knowing exactly what was going on. But we were able to kiss, hug. There were guys from Afghanistan, his soldiers, his buddies, that were calling from Afghanistan to check on him and to check on me to see how we were doing. Chris could have cared less about himself in that bed at that point. He was actually more worried about his brother still on the battlefield. Because I would tell him, such and such called or such and such called. And, well, how are they doing? How are they doing? Like, I got to go back. Because that was his context of things. Of he's got to go back. And it's like, sweetheart, you're not going back. That's not going to happen. But he's like, don't ever leave me. He was scared because of what was going on, that he was going to be left alone. That was one of his worries even growing up, like going off to the military. Who's going to remember him? Who was going to be there if he needed something? I actually have letters from Chris still that say a lot of that. So the 173rd Airborne VFW, one of them, in San Antonio, Texas, actually threw me a baby shower before Chris ended up passing away. And some of those things Chris got to see. And a pair of boots he sat there and played with. So he was a part of our daughter and our baby's life, even at that point. Before deployment, he went to every single doctor's with me. I don't know if because he needed a nap, because he did that quite a bit at the doctor's appointment, but he was 100% involved. And so for him to be able to sit there and see those things that his daughter's going to be able to wear and use, I still have those things to this day. The hospital that Chris was at in San Antonio does not have a delivery ward at that point or delivery wing at that point. And so we had one of his doctors, which she's amazing. She was able to go and be able to get special clearance. Mind you, this is 2007. to video live cast my birth to Chris's room so he would be able to watch the delivery of our daughter. Chris thought I was crazy. He's like, this is a hospital. What are you talking about? You can't deliver here. And I was like, it's okay. I got it taken care of. We're going to do this. He's like, okay, cool. Some of the doctors were 100% in the context of like, there's the fold out couch. We got you. We'll fold it out. We'll just have the baby in here. No problem. Other ones were like, no, we don't want him to deal with that. So Chris knew that I went above and beyond and tried to and had other people that were doing the same. One of the soldiers that were injured prior to Chris getting injured was at Walter Reed undergoing massive surgeries because he had lost his leg. He told his wife to come be with me for support because that's what you do for military, or that's what you do for family. And she came, and her mother came for me for support. So right before the end, Chris had an infection that spread through his body, E. coli. And with that, it spread through his whole body. He started hallucinating. Thought it was cool at first. He's like, oh, these are some cool things coming through the ceiling. Then it started scaring him, which I had to reassure him that he was okay, that nothing was going to get him, that he was safe. So the sergeant's wife that came, Chris's sister, they tried to, as a last resort with the doctors, do a white blood cell transfusion, thinking that that might help Chris with his white blood cells to be able to produce his own blood. Because at that point, we're talking a month and a half after getting injured, his body was not producing his own blood cells yet. He was still typing O blood, the universal, compared to his A positive blood type. They thought the paperwork and everything was wrong, that he didn't even have O or A. Come to find out he did. But at that point, trying to do the white cell blood transfusion was the last resort, but his body couldn't take it anymore. He was crashing. There was 3 days in there where his body was crashing. They didn't have to necessarily bring in the crash cart from what I was told, but they had to jump to action. And that last day, everybody kept pushing me to go sleep in. You're pregnant. You need a rest. So I slept in. And then I get a phone call, which the hospital is right by, or the motel is right by the hospital on base. I get a phone call that I need to come over, that he's crashing again. Okay. Try to get somebody to drive me over there, and they didn't understand what was going on, but the lady at the office in the hotel drove me over to the hospital real quick. At this point, they had him induced in a coma because the bed that they had him on was rotating because of the fluid buildup and whatnot. I don't tell many people this. When you sit there and you see somebody suffer that you love more than anything in the world, you don't want them to suffer. And I told him that day, or no, it was a couple days, whatever, around in there, that it was okay. That if he couldn't keep fighting and his body couldn't take it no longer, that it was okay. Then nobody was going to be mad at him. Apparently his mother told him the same thing. He was on life support for just a little bit, 30 minutes give or take, because his sister wasn't there yet because she was trying to donate her white blood cell, or hers. So I put him on life support for just a few. And then when she got there, we turned the machines off. Mind you, he's in medically induced coma. No reason or method to this. But as I'm sitting on the side crying and upset, he reaches for me and he grabs for me. Like saying it's okay. Perhaps.
His mom said that she was on the other side of him. His mom told me that she felt the same thing for her. And he ended up dying at 12:05 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I was rushed upstairs to the OB doctor where they had the machines and stuff like that to be able to check, because I was extremely emotionally distraught. Like really ugly crying. So everybody was worried I was going to go into labor because at this point I was 38 weeks pregnant. And I could pop any day. Went up there, had the baby checked out. She was fine. Everything was good. We had one priest guy that we became really close with. And he finally got his wish of pushing me around in a wheelchair, because I never let him until that day because they didn't want me walking. As far along as I was, they did not want me traveling to Nebraska, where he is from. They thought I would go into labor on the way because they couldn't fly, so it was driving. And everybody was 100% against that. There was actually backstep. There was one of the guys that were able to come from Afghanistan or from Germany to the hospital. Kind of got held up for some ignorant reasons, but he was able to get there, but because of him getting held up, he didn't get there until a few hours after Chris died. But he was there that night for me. He was there the next day at the hospital for a few hours before the magic all started happening. And then he had to go back. But that meant the world to me and to the family, because you're showing up. You're there. It means something. Because of the funeral and having to do all that, I got induced the next day. Having to go into labor and deliver your baby less than 24 hours after you watch your husband die. The only person that was ever there for the longest time, her father. You're bringing an innocent child into the world of pain and hurt and sadness. I was in labor for 18 hours. They initially did not give me any kind of pain medicine. And then when they looked at my charts, the nurse was like, I've never seen contractions like this in the umpteen years that she had been a doctor or nurse. Like, oh, thanks, appreciate it. Can you get me something? I squeezed the hold of the bed so tight that my hand and arm was numb for over a month afterwards. So when I went in, I ended up having to have a C-section after the 18 hours. And I always say that God's got jokes. Sometimes they ain't so funny. They're prepping me for my C-section. My anesthesiologist, the doctor that gives you your medicine, walks in. My name is Chris. If you need anything, just call out my name. I look at my sister-in-law and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you effing kidding me? I'm like, okay, cool. You're trying to show, Chris, in a sense, in my opinion, is trying to show me like he's there. It's the only way I could look at it. So, while in the in the operating room, I'm puking constantly. They've given me everything under the sun, and I'm just puking. And the anesthesiologist, Chris is just right there. They let me hold his wedding rings and stuff like that. They allowed me to. My sister-in-law was in the operating room with me. I got to hold Peyton real quick afterwards before I went to throw up again. Peyton had to be in the NICU for a short period of time due to some things, but she was fine. She was 8 pounds, 5 ounces. Never the same. After having her, I had to plan the funeral. So as we were driving to Nebraska, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, and I, with my newborn baby, I was planning the funeral while taking care of her. She slept through the night, the first week, one of the nights she slept through the night, which is unheard of to some degree. It's like, okay, is everything okay? You freak out. She's just amazing travel child at that time. Getting to Nebraska and doing the funeral, there was a lot of the guys that showed up from Afghanistan specifically and Germany. The unit had some big wig. I don't know, I don't remember. But they flew him in on a helicopter. So he must have been important to some degree. That had to walk with him. I get it, respect, 100%. But on the other hand, I'm emotionally distraught. I don't know who you are. Like, why do I need to walk with you? You can walk behind me. I'm good. It was an amazing service. It really was. A lot of the guys were there. Peyton, as a newborn baby, pretty much slept through all of it, which I was surprised. Even through the gun salute, she slept through it all. A couple of the guys were able to get some of the bullets and whatnot, or casings, from the salute, and we were able to save them. You know, at that point, my life had been flipped upside down. Because you have a context of family. You know, it's not usually just two. And I didn't grow up close with family. And so it's like I was all alone. So at this point, Chris's funeral in Nebraska, we lived in Germany. Where do I go? Where do I belong? Everything that I've known has been turned upside down. And then now I have a newborn baby. My sister-in-law is amazing. Absolutely amazing. She took us in, for lack of better terms. And we moved in with her. And she helped with me with Chris's and my daughter Peyton. I really hadn't had any experience with children. I mean, I wasn't bad at it, but I was clueless in a sense of certain things, or just being able to handle the squirmy little slimy thing giving them baths. You know, you got to have more than 2 hands sometimes. She was absolutely amazing. So we lived in New York for a very short period of time at that point with my sister-in-law. And at this point, like, in my opinion, you're stuck in the widow fog. You're just kind of on autopilot. You're just going through the motions, don't really remember much of it, really. So my casualties officer, the individual that they give you when something goes down of death, was amazing. She was awesome in New York. She wrote everything down for me because I'm dealing with Peyton and holding her and having to feed her and whatnot. I'm like, I ain't gonna, like, really? So she was able to write everything down for me, and so I could look back at it and reference it. But then we ended up going from New York to California with her because, once again, we didn't really have nowhere to live because our household and everything was in Germany. So at this point, I get a new casualties officer. We're talking, I don't know, 8 months roughly after his passing. I get a new casualties officer. I'm like, okay, I need to go back to Germany and I need to get our belongings. Like, all of our baby stuff is in Germany. Even though I had the baby shower, you know, I gave a lot of that stuff away, honestly, because I don't need a whole bunch, you know, rather help others. So, but I wanted her crib that her dad picked out. I wanted the stuff that we had together. So my casualties officer gets me plane tickets with my daughter to Germany. Once I get to Germany, things become interesting. Because at the briefing before deployment, you're told that if something unfortunately was to happen, you are command sponsored to live on base up to a year. Mind you, this is 18 years ago. So I get to Germany roughly 8 months after his passing, and I'm not allowed on base. I am no longer command sponsored on base. At that point, the stipulation was 6 months after the soldier's passing, you are no longer command sponsored to be able to have access to base. So I had to get my friends, the one that was pregnant with me, to command sponsor me so I could even go to my own house. Well, with not being command sponsored anymore, you're not allowed to have a military passport. The casualties officer in California should have known this. But I get to Germany and I'm told I am illegal. I am not supposed to be here on my military passport. And they take it from me. And they tell me, do not get in trouble. We're going to expedite your passport. But if you get in trouble, you will get thrown in German jail. And I'm like, okay, I have a 9-month-old with me. Like, what do you mean? Like, okay. Obviously I didn't get in any trouble. But it's the hassle of it. Like, seriously? How can you sit there and put these people through that when you don't give them the right information? Like, it's just, how dare you? It was a slap in the face, really. Because it's like I can't even go into my own home. Thankfully, I had amazing friends that were there for me. Once I was able to get all of our stuff back from Germany, we were still in California at the time. I got invited to do the National Memorial Day concert in Washington, D.C. in 2008. So we were featured on that with our unit and our guys and the situations that had went down. It felt good because they were getting the stories out there, because the stories are important, because without telling the stories, the soldiers are forgotten or first responders are forgotten. And they should never be forgotten. And so being able to do that concert was amazing because I actually got a lot of grief about it from people because they looked at it as it's a publicity stunt. They don't care. Like, you know what? Perhaps that is the case. But if it can help one person that sees this, that might be in my situation or that might potentially be in my situation down the road, that they end up knowing that there are people that care. There are people that are there, that want to be there. And so I did that. After that, Sergeant Falconberry, which is one of the gentlemen that was featured in the Memorial Day concert as well. He was the veteran that lost his leg. His family and his wife's family took me and my daughter in Texas. I'm originally from Texas. Still didn't really know where to go and where we belonged. Didn't really fit in anywhere. And so they took us in and we lived with his in-laws, his wife Sarah, her parents for quite a while, trying to figure out where we were going and where we fit in. I ended up buying a house in Midland, Texas. Peyton and I lived there for a while. But for me, family was important. I didn't grow up with close family. Peyton's family and Chris's family was in Nebraska. So I up and moved to Nebraska. Being able to have her around her family was important to me because I wanted her to know her father, her father's family, and where she come from. I got into a relationship with a gentleman for a few years. Wasn't necessarily the best, but wasn't the worst, either, but we ended up breaking up. Peyton's getting older. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to move back to Texas to be around my brother, which is a Marine veteran, thinking that he was going to step up and be a part of Peyton's life more. My sister-in-law, which had took us in at one point, was living in Texas as well. And so we moved closer to her. I got Peyton into riding horses at 4-5 years old. She's pretty decent at it, but a lot of times at that age, she wanted to go and catch the butterfly and she wanted to go and catch the, dragonfly and all this other stuff. But being able to have that country lifestyle, the relaxed lifestyle,
Animals, I think, are very therapeutic. Even to this day, she really loves it. But unfortunately, it has been a struggle to find community. And so we've moved back and forth between Texas and Nebraska quite a bit. At the time that I became a widow in 2007, I was 22 years old, 21, 22 years old. You don't find very many young widows, let alone with a child. So if you can think about it in the senses of a sporting event on the smaller spectrum of give or take 4,000 people. In 2007, you would have found one military widow out of that whole 4,000. So when you talk about solitude, it was suffocating because you try to reach out to family. Family tries to be there for you and support you, but nobody understands what you're going through unless they've been through it to some degree. We were isolated from a community of understanding for roughly 7 years. And that isolation can make you feel like your feelings are overdramatic, perhaps, or you just got to push through it. It's no big deal, which, yes, to some degree, it's true. But having people that understand you makes a big difference in the senses of being able to heal from that. And so I did have one friend in Nebraska. She was a military wife, but still different contexts. But because of that connection, we were able to, have a friendship. I ended up receiving a phone call or email from a widow out of Nebraska. At this point, I'm living in Texas, about an honor flight. I had never done anything military connection related, mind you, for 7 years. So I'm thinking, is this even real? Or is somebody trying to pull my leg? Through the casualties officer that we had at the time, or actually not casualties officer, it's SOS, Survivor Outreach Services, here locally in Houston area. Her name was Candace. She was amazing. She verified, confirmed everything was good. And so for the first time, after losing my husband, I was going to go around other people that potentially understood me. The thought was scary. The anxiety, the emotional distress. Like, I had never found anybody that understood my journey at that point. So how are they going to understand me now? At this point, I had another daughter. She was about 1 year old. Her father was a veteran as well. I thought he would understand things, but ultimately that was not a good situation whatsoever. But both of my girls flew to Nebraska with me for the honor flight. And I'm sitting there in the hotel room where they had all of us on a base. So you're all kind of in the same quarters, like a dorm. And I'm sitting there taking care of my little one, and Peyton, being 7, 8 years old, sees me like, Mom, you need to go out. Go talk to the widow, go hang out, go socialize. And I'm like, why? I'm like, what's the point? She's like, it's okay. I'm like, but I'm scared, honestly. I mean, even getting onto the airplane to leave was extremely difficult. Honestly, kept going to the bathroom and puking because the amount of anxiety I had to even get on that plane of going and doing something in that statue was sickening. But I also knew that it was the only way to grow, to be able to potentially be around other individuals that understood what I was going through, so I didn't feel isolated and I didn't feel alone. So I listened to my 8-year-old and she watched her sister while I went outside and hung out with a group of widows for the first time in roughly 8 years. It was difficult to even allow your guard down. Like, yeah, you're hanging out with people and you're laughing and you're joking and everything's good to go, but you're like, okay, really? Like, I don't know about this kind of thing. But it definitely made a huge impact on me in the senses of being able to realize that I wasn't alone for the first time. The feelings, the emotions, the going to a mail room, because that's where the information was delivered that my husband was shot. or, other little triggers, they got it. They understood it. It's like an unspoken understanding. And being able to have that, like, you do let your guard down to a little bit. And it's like you can take a deep breath. Because forever and it's like you can't. You're suffocating. And that's where I realized that things had to change for me in the senses of my trauma, my life experiences of what I've went through and what I've lost. But not only for me, for my daughter, because she had never experienced that. She had never been around individuals and other children that understood her sorrow and understood that she had an angel daddy. Because ever since she was little, that's what we referred to him as. That is her angel daddy. He watches over her. Because I even had, try to get counseling for your kids, if they need it. And I did that. We went to the regular pediatrician. And she is of I don't know how to put this, Middle Eastern lady. And because my husband being shot in Afghanistan, I'd say that was difficult for me. But she had the audacity to tell me or ask me, why did I need a referral for a counselor for my child? If I would have never told her about her father, she would never have had the trauma and the damage about it. Like, okay, we're in a child's office, we're in a pediatrician's office, don't go off. It's like, how dare you? And when the doctor left out of the office, my daughter was even asking me, she's like, why shouldn't I know about my angel daddy? Why is that wrong? So when she was able to go around other kids that got her, it wasn't a question of if there's something wrong with her. Trying to go to a civilian counselor, they thought, oh, there's something wrong with her. Like, because mind you, she's trying to process things as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. And she had actually built a grave out of Legos and laid in it with flowers and go, hey, look, mommy, look what I built. Just like daddy's kind of thing. She's visited her dad's grave. She's always was out there and putting stuff out there. Like, to her, it's a normal thing. To a civilian counselor, not so much. And so we ended up transferring into a veteran counselor, which he's like, nah, it's normal. And she's processing, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. So she felt more normal as well with that. And so getting connected with the right people has helped tremendously. Over the years, the people that say they're going to be there, they kind of fade off with different life situations that happen. But when you have the Gold Star community and you have those people that get you, you don't feel so alone. You don't feel so isolated. And it helps tremendously. After that trip that we took for the honor flight in Nebraska, we got a phone call from Chris's Sergeant Falkenberry, the one that had the amputee. He was working for an organization that does hunting. Mind you, we hadn't really done anything of this sort. We had never hunted or anything like that. Peyton's about 8 years old at this point. And so we were able to go hunting with him. The guys and stuff like that, we've always considered as family, as her uncles. Those are her uncles, such and such and such and such. So she was able to go hunting the first time with her Uncle Falkenberry and was able to get a couple of deer. I was able to hunt that as well. So that was our experience together for the first time. And being able to have that connection to my late husband and being able to show my daughter the individuals that he served with and them showing up, really made a huge difference for her when she was younger.
The night was cold and restless, shadows moving on the walls. I held on to your last words like they could stop the fall. Your picture by the window, your beside me, like you're there to hold me close once more.